Genesis chapter 37. Jacob lived in the land of Canaan. It's the land where his father had stayed. Here is the story of the family line of Jacob. Joseph was a young man. He was 17 years old. He was taking care of the flocks with some of his brothers. They were the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah, the wives of his father Jacob. Joseph brought their father a bad report about his brothers. Israel loved Joseph more than any of his other sons. That's because Joseph had been born to him when he was old. Israel made him a beautiful robe. Joseph's brothers saw that their father loved him more than any of them, so they hated Joseph. They couldn't even speak one kind word to him. Joseph had a dream. When he told it to his brothers, they hated him even more. He said to them, "Listen to the dream I had. We were tying up bundles of grain out in the field. Suddenly my bundle stood straight. Your bundles gathered around my bundle and bowed down to it." His brothers said to him, "Do you plan to be king over us? Will you really rule over us?" So they hated him even more because of his dream. They didn't like what he had said. Then Joseph had another dream. He told it to his brothers. "Listen," he said, "I had another dream. This time the sun and moon and 11 stars were bowing down to me." He told his brother as well as his brother. Then his father rebuked him. He said, "What about this dream you had? Will your mother and I and your brothers really do that? Will we really come and bow down to the ground in front of you?" His brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the dreams in mind. Joseph's brother had gone to take care of their father's flock near Shechem. Israel said to Joseph, "As you know, your brothers are taking care of the flocks near Shechem. Come, I'm going to send you to them." "All right," Joseph replied. So Israel said to him, "Go to your brothers, see how they're doing. Also see how the flocks are doing. Then come back and tell me." So he sent him away from the Hebron valley. Joseph arrived at Shechem. A man found him wandering around in the fields. He asked Joseph, "What are you looking for?" He replied, "I'm looking for my brothers. Can you tell me where they're taking care of their flocks?" "They moved on from here." The man answered, "I heard them say, 'Let's go to Dothan.'" So Joseph went to look for his brothers. He found them near Dothan, but they saw him a long way off. Before he reached them, they made plans to kill him. "Here comes that dreamer," they said to one another. "Come, let's kill him. Let's just throw him into one of these empty wells. Let's just say that a wild animal ate him up. Then we'll see whether his dream will come true." Reuben heard them talking. He tried to save Joseph from them. "Let's not take his life," he said. "Do not spill any of his blood. Throw him into this empty well here in the desert, but do not harm him yourselves." Reuben said that to save Joseph from them. He was hoping he could take him back to his father. When Joseph came to his brothers, he was wearing his beautiful robe. They took it away from him, and they threw him into the well. The well was empty. There wasn't any water in it. Then they sat down to eat their meal. As they did, they saw some Ishmaelite traders coming from Gilead. Their camels were loaded with spices, lotion, and myrrh. They were on their way to take them down to Egypt. Judah said to his fathers, "What will we gain if we kill our brother and try to cover up what we have done? Come, let's sell him to these traders. Let's not harm him ourselves. After all, he's our brother. He's our own flesh and blood." Judah's brothers agreed with him. The traders from Midian came by. Joseph's brother pulled him up out of the well. They sold him to the Ishmaelite traders for 8 ounces of silver. Then the trader took him to Egypt. Later, Reuben came back to the empty well. He saw that Joseph wasn't there. He was so upset that he tore his clothes. He went back to his brother and said, "The boy isn't there. Now what should I do?" Then they got Joseph's beautiful robe. They killed the goat and dipped the robe in the blood. They took the robe back to their father. They said, "We found this. Take a look at it. See if it's your son's robe." Jacob recognized it. He said, "It's my son's robe. A wild animal has eaten him up." Joseph must have been torn to pieces. So Jacob told his clothes he put on the love clothing people wear when they are sad. Then he mourned for his son many days. Or Jacob's other sons and daughters came to comfort him, but they were not able to. He said, I will continue to mourn until I go down into the grave to be with my son. So Joseph's father mourned for him. But the traders from Midian sold Joseph to Potiphar in Egypt. Potiphar was one of the Pharaoh's officers. He was the captain of the palace guard. Genesis chapter 38. At that time, Judah left his brothers. He went down to stay with a man named Hira from the town of Adullam. There Judah met the daughter of a man from Canaan. His name was Shua. Judah married her and slept with her. She became pregnant and had a son. They named him Er. She became pregnant again and had another son. She named him Onan. She had still another son. She named him Shelah. He was born at Kezib. Judah got a wife for his oldest son Er. Her name was Tamar, but Judah's oldest son Er was evil in the Lord's eyes. So the Lord put him to death. Then Judah said to Onan, sleep with your brother's wife. After all, you are her brother-in-law, so carry out your duty to her. Provide children for your brother. But Onan knew that the children wouldn't belong to him. So every time he slept with his brother's wife, he spilled his semen on the ground. He did it so he wouldn't provide the children for his brother. What he did was evil in the Lord's eye. So the Lord put him to death also. Then Judah spoke to his daughter-in-law Tamar. He said, live as a widow in your father's home. Wait there until my son Shelah grows up. Judah was thinking Shelah might die too, just like his brother. So Tamar went to live in her father's home. After a long time, Judah's wife died. She was the daughter of Shua. When Judah got over his sadness, he went up to Timnah. His friend Hira from Adullam went with him. Men were clipping the wool from Judah's sheep at Timnah. Tamar was told, your father-in-law is on his way to Timnah to clip the wool from his sheep. She took off her widow's clothes. She covered her face with a veil so people wouldn't know who she was. Then she sat down at the entrance to Enaim. Enaim is on the road to Timnah. Tamar knew that Shelah had grown up, but she didn't been given to him as his wife. Judah saw her. He thought she was a prostitute because she had covered her face with a veil. He didn't realize that she was his daughter-in-law. He went over to her by the side of the road. He said, come, let me sleep with you. What will you give me to sleep with you? She asked. I will send you a young goat from my flock, he said. Will you give me something that belongs to you? She asked. I will keep it until you send the goat. He said, what should I give you? Give me your official seal and the string that it hangs from, she answered, and give me your walking stick. So she gave them to her. Then he slept with her, and she became pregnant by him. After she left, she took off the veil. She put on her widow's clothes again. Judah sent his friend Hira with the young goat he had promised. He wanted to get back what he had given to the woman, but his friend Hira couldn't find her. He asked the man who lived at Enaim, where's the temple prostitute? She used to sit beside the road here. There has been any temple prostitute here, they said. So Hira went back to Judah. He said, I couldn't find her. Besides, the man who lived there didn't know anything about her. They said, there hasn't been any temple prostitute here. Then Judah said, let her keep what she says. I don't want people making fun of us. After all, I did send there this young goat, so we cannot help it if you couldn't find her. About 3 months later, people brought word to Judah. They said, your daughter-in-law Tamar is guilty of being a prostitute. Now she's pregnant. Judah said, bring her out. Have her burned to death. As Tamar was being brought out, she sent a message to her father-in-law. She said, I'm pregnant by the man who owns this. She continued, do you recognize this seal and string and walking stick? Do you know who they belong to? Judah recognized them. He said, she is a better person than I am. I should have given her to my son Shelah, but I didn't. Judah never slept with Tamar again. The time came for Tamar to have a baby. There were twin boys inside her. As the babies were being born, one of them stuck out his hand. So the woman helped Tamar to a bright red thread. The woman tied it on the baby's wrist. She said, this one came out first, but he pulled his hand back. And his brother came out first instead. She said, "Just look at how you have forced your way out." So he was called Perez. Then his brother, who had a red thread on his wrist, came out. So he was named Zerah.